Testing. Good morning. It is Thursday, the 5th of January, 6:41 a.m. I had to get up a bit earlier today because I'm taking my wife to Southern Cross Station to get on a coach back to our little hometown of Sale, Victoria. So she can attend a wedding this weekend, and I'll be joining her later. But obviously, as I mentioned yesterday, Otis needs his pills, so we can't be away from him for too long, and we can't both be going away at the same time, which is unfortunate. But hence why my voice probably sounds a little bit husky, and I'm on fucking very little. I got very little energy. I'm gonna be sipping my coffee, and I'm gonna be. I don't know how long we're gonna talk today. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I can't be fucked. This is one of those projects where it's so grueling because I have to do it every day, a minimum of 10 minutes every day. And I don't have to, but I said I was going to. And there's this element of if I don't do it, then I don't know. What's the word? It's easy to say like. If I don't do it, I'm a little bitch, but it's not quite that shallow, you know. It's more like that. I've got a goal, and if I don't complete that goal, there's like a fulfillment that isn't there. So anyway, I might take a few more pauses. It might take me a little bit longer to get my points out because I am tired and this is grueling. But that's sort of the whole project. It's meant to be, I guess, raw. Each of these clips that you hear every day that I record, I press record and I talk for 10 to 20 minutes and I stop and I don't edit it. There's nothing else that goes on. And then by the time these are uploaded, there'll just be a photo attached. I'm not sure what I'm thinking, maybe just the setup that I've got so everyone can see just how janky this is and how how easy it is to get started. I bought all this equipment for a podcast when I was doing it with my wife, and that sort of dwindled off because it's really hard to manage. At the time, we were both living, very separate lives, just in the same house, and so we would come together once a week and talk about stuff, and then that once a week became once a fortnight, and it just wasn't consistent, so we just stopped. But anyway, I've been reading a book. This year where Maddie and I started a book club together where we just read the same book at the same time, and we can sit down and discuss it, or we just learn all these different things. And I think it's more motivating to do it that way than to just read books on my own, because I also like to play video games and hang out with friends and do other things, so I'll always find an excuse to not read. And if I've got this book that if we've got a book that we're reading together, there's an obligation as well, because she'll want to talk about it and I'll want to talk about it. And so anyway, the book is called Tuesdays with Maury. It's about an old sociology professor that the author Mitch Albom used to have at college, and he gets Lou Gehrig's disease, or ALS, and it's just about they get back in contact when Maury's dying, and Mitch is a journalist, sports journalist or something, and he talks to him about life and death. Anyway, there's this chapter that I was reading, it's called The Fourth Tuesday, and they talk about death. And I'm just going to read parts of it because I think I think this is a very important perspective. It's one that I have had before this book, but it's one that has sort of validated it, especially knowing that a sociology professor from the 80s used to have the same thought process. And then even further, I've got books from Marcus Aurelius and what's his name, Miyamoto Musashi, and I've got the Tao Te Ching, all these books that sort of meditate and talk about the inevitability of your mortality. So this is going to be a bit of a darker episode, I think, a darker day. But Well, I wouldn't consider it that. I just say that to ease other people. So if you have some sort of anxiety, probably best to stop listening. Or honestly, it's probably best to keep listening because you might need to hear it. Everyone knows they're going to die, but nobody believes it. If we did, we would do things differently. So we kid ourselves about death. But there's a better approach: to know that you're going to die and to be prepared for it at any time. That's better. That way you can actually be more involved in your life while you're living it. And I think that's so interesting to think about, right? Because just on that, there's more, but I'll just talk about that for a minute. Sorry. It's interesting to think about it because think about the last week. Think about this year. Think about last year. Think about all the times that you were frustrated, or you were angry, or you did things out of spite, or somebody upset you, somebody did something, or even then you did nothing. You chose to sit at home and hang out, and I mean, for the better part of last year, I didn't get out and socialize unless I was invited. I didn't make time to do my own things. I didn't, or it was very rare because I was so focused on, working at the time. I was running two retail stores, doing a dual site role. So I was thinking I was at the peak of my career. I felt like I was on top of the world. I felt like I had to prove something to somebody, and I probably did. I had to prove something, but not to anyone but myself, and I sacrificed a lot last year to be able to do that. And I don't like to live with regrets, but I do like to learn from what I would consider mistakes. And so, working hard last year, I don't regret, because it taught me a very valuable lesson, which is no one gives a fuck. No one cares. Nobody cares. Not even me. I didn't care. No one cares. No one cares if you can do more hours than anyone else. No one cares if you can put out more work than anyone else. No one cares. Not unless you're doing it and you're doing something great and you're doing something different. But if you're in the rat race, which is what I'm going to call it, if you're in a corporate world, if you're in a retail world, if you're in hospitality, if you're in a job that is just grueling and you're working and there's no fucking promotability, there's no acknowledgement for the hard work or the effort, there's no accolades, then you're living life the wrong way. That's part of the reason I started this project as well, was to be self-reflective. Sitting down and journaling just takes too long. If I only have 20 minutes in a day, I don't have enough time to write out all my thoughts. But if I only have 20 minutes a day, I could sit here and talk shit for 20, and that's far easier. And I feel it's far more therapeutic. So anyway, think back on last year and think about all the times that the points of contention, and the times you were stressed, and all the times that you all the times you chose to do nothing instead. And now think about if you had have meditated on your death. Think about if you had 6 months left to live. At any point of those points, what would you do differently? How would you live your life? How would you restructure things? Who would you want to be around? What would you want to worry about? Where would you want to go? And I know it's kind of confronting, and I know it's, rather macabre to sit and think about, your mortality. But the reality is, it's coming. For some of us, sooner rather than later. But death, that's the only inevitability in your life. The only guarantee in anybody's life is that one day we'll all meet the Reaper. And it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be a scary thing. In fact, I think the more that we worry about something like that and we try to prevent something like that, the less we're focusing on living. And I feel like if you only had 10 years, but you spent that doing the most, doing everything you wanted to do, saying the things you wanted to say, being around the people you wanted to be around, not sacrificing for the idea that you might live another 10, maybe you live a much more fulfilling life. And then when death finally comes, you can say, hey, you know what? I've had a good life. And on another point, which I'll get to in a moment, I think a big part of the fulfilling, or the of feeling fulfilled on your deathbed. Perhaps I haven't really spoken to anybody who's dying before, but I think one of the most fulfilling things would be to know how many people you impacted in your life, in a positive way. Obviously, if you sat there and you were fucking thinking about all the people that you did wrong, and that was right before you died, you probably have a lot of regrets. But think about all the people that you would have impacted by reaching out, by hanging out, by spending that extra hour, by eating that extra ice cream. I just, I think it's beautiful to think about. I think that there's an element to it where we shouldn't be too afraid. There's an ancient Greek saying, or maybe it's Latin, I can't remember, but memento mori, which means remember your death, which is it's a Stoic thing. I believe Marcus Aurelius wrote about it. Anyway, it's the same sort of principle, remember your death. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. Nobody's guaranteed tomorrow. For most of us, we have it. For most of us, we have the next 20 years. We have another 20 years of tomorrows, But why do we put life on pause? Why do we say, I'll get to that later. I'll do that project later. I'll, my kids want to go to the zoo. Mum and dad are busy this weekend. We'll get to that later. And because you're working. And what are you doing with your time other than work? Maybe it's not work. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something that you do find fulfilling, and that's fine. That's fair enough. But you also think about that, how that's going to impact the people around you. Sorry, I keep coughing and spluttering. So we're going to sit here for just a moment to think about that. So anyway, we'll move on to the next section in this book. I'm obviously paraphrasing. Not everything is here, and I would recommend anybody who gets the chance to pick up a copy of this book, Tuesdays with Morrie. Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. It's a really good book. It's an easy read. I think I've read about 100 pages in the last couple of days, just on the train on the way into work. Anyway, how can you ever be prepared to die? Do what the Buddhists do. Every day, have a little bird on your shoulder that asks, is today the day? Am I ready? Am I doing all I need to do? Am I being the person I want to be? Is today the day I die? I think that's interesting, right? It's like an accountability parrot, maybe. Keeps you in line. It's like by asking that question to the proverbial parrot, to the hypothetical parrot, to the hypothetical bird. It could be a finch. I don't care what bird you choose. Whatever bird's on your shoulder that's asking you, that you have to ask if it's the day you die. It's like the canary in the mine, is today the day I die? And when you ask that question, and the answer is no, then you get this opportunity. It's a new opportunity every day to restructure how you think and how you react and interact with the world. And I think there's a beauty in that. I think that's where it's beautiful. I don't think thinking about your death is a beautiful thing. I think knowing the inevitability of it and choosing to live your life differently. That's the beauty of thinking about your death. And he goes on to say, Maury goes on to say, the truth is, Mitch, which is the author, it's really hard reading this book because it's my name too. Once you learn how to die, you learn how to live. Once you learn how to die, you learn how to live. And I think what he's trying to say there is, once you accept that you are going to die, and you learn that it's not today, and you learn that it's not tomorrow, or you know what I mean, once you go through these processes of asking yourself, is today the day? Is today the day I do this? Is today the day I die? You'll start to question what life you're living and how fulfilling that is for you. And if it isn't fulfilling, and it's not, and the questions that you're asking aren't being answered, and the way that you're feeling isn't great, you'll start to restructure your life a little bit. You'll start to do things differently. You know, maybe you'll call your parents. Maybe you'll start to reach out to friends a bit more. Maybe you'll start to do the things that you want to do, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. And it took me till 26, 27 to understand that, and to I guess stop caring about what other people thought, and to start a project like this. I've had thousands of things I've wanted to do over the years. Since I was 15, I've had all these goals that I've wanted to achieve, and I've just been paralyzed by this fear of this fear of what people would think. And then on top of that, I've always said, I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. But tomorrow's never guaranteed. The fact that I'm here is even lucky. Anything could have happened. And that's even before I was 15. I had these goals. Anything could have happened growing up. We'll get into that. On further days. I mean, I'm only 5 days in, so I don't want to live my whole life in 5 days for the audience and then have nothing to talk about. But there's so much more to say on this topic. There's so much more to think about this topic, but we're coming to the end of the 20 minutes. So I just want to, I guess, leave that with everybody. I feel like this is part of the reason I started this project, to be able to share perspectives like that and to be able to think, and I guess use this as a moment. Perhaps you're listening to this and you have no idea who I am. Maybe you're listening to this and you know who I am. But I think that it's good that I'm able to create this every day, and whoever wants to can listen to it every day, or on days that they choose, doesn't matter. It's just thought provoking. There's perspective. There's different, attitudes and ideologies and philosophies that I can discuss on here, and it's 10 to 20 minutes of your day where you can sit and you can think and you can ponder, and hopefully spend the rest of your day living a little differently, in a positive way, not a negative way. I wouldn't want you to be out there worrying all day on, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Anyway, that's Thursday the 5th of Jan. Ooh, that's an alarm for 7 a.m. There you go. I hope everybody has a fucking fantastic day. And I hope that the last couple haven't been as boring. But I hope you can understand that this is a grueling project, and I'm not going to have a lot to say every day. So maybe some days we'll just sit here and be silent together. And when you sit down, you think you're going to be listening to something, you have an opportunity just to pause. See you.